What a final match day to the group stage of the 2023 Gold Cup. Some absolute classic Concacaf Gold Cup matches occurred as the group stage of this edition ended with a bang. Some teams that were looking way out of it came back and broke into the quarterfinals, and some teams that looked solidly in the quarterfinals fell out in this last match day. In the end, we get a result of the final 8 teams are exactly the final 8 I had in my predictions video. So here's how we got here. In Group A, we had the US beating Trinidad and Tobago 6-0 and Jamaica beating St. Kitts and Nevis 5-0 to end the group, with the US coming in first and Jamaica coming in second, to those two teams advancing. Now, coming into the last match day, we knew Group A was going to be a complete shootout between the US and Jamaica. Both teams had already played each other, they had drawn each other, and both won their second game, so we knew first place in the group was going to come down to goal differential. And oh my, did both of these teams come out to score. Jamaica put in their best effort, beating St. Kitts and Nevis 5-0. However, it was not enough, as the Trinidad and Tobago defense didn't do them any favors, allowing 6 goals against the United States, including Jesus Ferreira getting his second straight hat trick in a Gold Cup match. He's up to 6 goals after just the group stage of this tournament. So after 2 strong games against weaker opposition to finish the group stage, the US comes out on top of Group A, with Jamaica finishing in second. Group B, what a wild finish. I had Qatar completely written off, and yet they beat Mexico 1-0 in a game where they were outshot 25-1. Mexico got FIFA'd in this match. Like, this is a result that you do not see out of the FIFA video game. 1 shot attempt, 1 goal for Qatar versus a Mexico team that had dominated the shots, dominated the possession. Mexico dominated everything in this game, and yet they lose to a Qatar team that desperately needed a win. And then on the other side, Honduras beat Haiti 2-1. Going into this game, it seemed like Honduras beating Haiti was all they needed to do to clinch a spot in the quarterfinals. And yet, somehow, because of that Qatar result, that A, wasn't enough, and B, was the exact result Qatar needed to move on. So somehow, against all the odds, Qatar came back and qualified for the quarterfinal, coming in second place in Group B. Just what an insane finish to this group in the final match day. And speaking of insane finishes, going to Group C, we had first off Costa Rica beating Martinique 6-4. Now Martinique, they went down 5-1. They tried their damnedest to come back, ended up losing this game 6-4 in a game where a point would have gotten them in to the quarterfinals. Costa Rica needed a win, and they went out, they flew out, they got the performance they needed. It got a little testy at the end for them there, because they almost blew a 5-1 lead. It went down to 5-3 before they put the 6-3 dagger in, and then Martinique scored 1 more. But like, Costa Rica, they needed a win, they got the win, and they needed El Salvador to not win in the other game, and that one was also close. That was a 2-2 draw between El Salvador and Panama. Panama was up for most of that game, leading 2-1 up until like the 89th minute, and then El Salvador scores to tie that match up. So Panama had a chance to be the only team to go a perfect 3-0-0 in the group stage, blow it in the last couple minutes. They end with 7 points, so no one in this Gold Cup goes a perfect 3-0-0, 9 points in the group stage. But Panama still finishes top of that group, and Costa Rica, they needed everything to go right for them on the last match day, and everything did go right for them on the last match day as they get into the quarterfinals in second place. And in Group D, first off, Canada needed to beat Cuba by more than 1 goal to ensure that no matter what happened in the other match in that group, they moved on to the quarterfinals, and they got it. They got a 4-2 win over Cuba, which, like, it was their best game of the tournament, but also for Canada against Cuba, you'd expect Canada to do better against Cuba than they did. Cuba made things a little harder for Canada than you would expect it to be. But Canada got the job done and got a quarterfinal spot. Guatemala and Guadeloupe. Guatemala wins 3-2 in what is a complete Concacaf Classic, probably the match of the Gold Cup so far, maybe the match of the whole Gold Cup when it's over and done. Guadeloupe, Guatemala, because of the result of the Canada game, a draw would have sent Guadeloupe through, and so Guatemala needed a win, and wow, was this a close game for them. You have Guadeloupe goes up 1-0, Guatemala ties it, Guadeloupe goes up 2-1 on a penalty that was just like a 7-minute long VAR look to determine if that was a penalty or not. They get the goal, the penalty to go up. Almost immediately after, Guatemala draws the game 2-2. Guatemala then takes a 3-2 lead. And then at the 88th minute, Guadeloupe gets a penalty shot, a chance to tie the game 3-3 in the 88th minute to get the result that would send Guadeloupe through and send Guatemala home. And the Guatemalan keeper stops the penalty in the 89th minute. What? An absolute insane matchup between Guadeloupe and Guatemala. Guatemala barely, by the skin of their teeth, holds on to the result they need to make not only the quarterfinals, but top the group as Guatemala qualifies for a Gold Cup quarterfinal for the first time since 2011. So after a wild Gold Cup group stage, the quarterfinal matchups are Guatemala versus Jamaica, Mexico versus Costa Rica, the US versus Canada, and Panama versus Qatar. Should be a fantastic knockout stage, and I can't wait to see what happens next. So this is it for this video. As always, don't forget to hit like if you want to see more of my stuff. Hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, link is down below in the description, and I will see you next time.